After all your struggle, at last you've arrived before us.
I've lost track of the number of times I've been killed, so go ahead. Do your worst.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my full Loki episode 4 video. Holy crap, there were so many big reveals, so many WTF moments, and so many Easter eggs we have to talk about, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and just leave all your favorite moments, your favorite twists from the episode in the comments. Careful for spoilers if you have not seen the episode yet, because we'll be talking about everything. And I hope that you stayed after the credits, because this was the first Loki episode with a genuine post-credit scene. Technically, it was a mid-credit scene, but we'll talk about all of that. There were so many big reveals, but obviously it's only episode 4. There are 6 episodes total, so this is just the beginning. I'll start at the beginning of the episode, we'll work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments, and I'll number these as we go along just to stay organized. Starting with the title of the episode, The Nexus Event. It's a reference to a couple of things, mainly to the Nexus event that Loki and Sylvie caused on Lamentis 1 that they kept referencing throughout the episode, the Nexus event that would be big enough to take down the entire TVA as Mobius teased. It's also meant to be a reference to the Nexus event that young Sylvie apparently caused that turned her into a variant, which we don't completely get the answers to in this episode, but I'll talk about that as we get to that part. But the opening scene is of Sylvie's backstory in her version of Asgard in the past. We get a sweeping shot of Asgard from behind. It's actually a different view of Asgard than we've seen before. I think because we visited Asgard so much in the Marvel movies already, the Thor movies, they wanted to show you like a fresh shot of the Asgard city itself. But inside the palace, young Sylvie is just playing a game, telling a story about a dragon attacking Asgard and a Valkyrie flying in, defeating it to save the city. There's a little wooden Viking ship here. Technically, it's an Asgardian ship. You may have also noticed the small toy of the wolf here. That's meant to be a representation of Fenris wolf, which we saw during Thor Ragnarok. That was the wolf that was serving Hela. But in Norse mythology, Fenris wolf is actually the child of Loki, so it's sort of like the wolf here is the child of Sylvie, so to speak, sort of a metaphor for that. Then all of a sudden, Gugu Mbatha-Ra's Renslayer character, who's a hunter at this time in history, walks in to arrest her through a time portal. Her designation is A23 because she debuted for the first time in the comics in Avengers 23, which was a Kang the Conqueror storyline, as Princess Renslayer. She debuted as Princess Renslayer, not Ravonna Renslayer. So I don't know if this version of Renslayer was also a princess where she originally came from. You can actually see the helmet itself inside her trophy case with all the other trophies from their cases. So the idea is that a long time ago, about 1,000 years ago or so, because Sylvie's about the same age as our version of Loki, and he's just a little over 1,000 years old, she was just a normal hunter, a little bit lower on the chain, and she's worked her way up to the level of judge at this point in history. It seems like next week in episode 5 is when we get the full reveal on her backstory, Renslayer's backstory. Then they haul her to the TVA and use a time reset device to wipe the area, wipe her timeline, erasing it from existence. So even if Sylvie wanted to in present day, she couldn't go back to where she came from. But they haul young Sylvie through to the processing area that we saw in episode 1. There's a different female desk worker, meaning the Casey probably hasn't started working here yet, or he hasn't been promoted to that position. The person that she sees them manhandle who's crying out for help here with that giant mustache, you may have recognized was the same TVA agent who was monitoring the desk station here when Sylvie set off all those time reset device bombs, creating all those different branch timelines. So if he seemed familiar, that's why. It's meant to be the same person. So it's just meant to reinforce the idea that all these TVA agents are variants themselves, like they stole him from somewhere in history, and then, like he still has his big mustache, but he has a vastly different haircut. It seems like they've altered his personality just a little bit, and he's sitting here, monitoring this desk here, watching this station. Then she goes through the same processing system that Loki went through during episode 1. She sees the exact same processing clerk who asked Loki to sign his name to everything he'd ever said. She goes through the booth to verify that she's not a robot or an android of some form of artificial life. Then when Renslayer tries to haul her before a judge for sentencing, she stomps on her foot, steals her time pad device, opens a portal to escape, sort of confirming my theory that at some point she would have escaped as a child, and this is how she did it. So she had a time pad. In the way that adult Sylvie explains it later to Loki when they're still on Lamentis 1, is that it took her a while, like jumping around a lot, before she figured out the trick of hiding in apocalypse events. And even though they've been kind of vague about what it takes to create Nexus events, like what is it about Sylvie that creates Nexus events, she said that whatever was different about her was so strong that everywhere she went, every time she interacted with someone, it created a new Nexus event. I think we'll learn more about that during episode 5 and episode 6. Like, what is it about her that's so different? Because even at the end of the episode, Renslayer refuses to tell her what the Nexus event was that turned her into a variant. But then we jump to Renslayer in present day, who's sort of remembering the events. Like, it's implied that she's remembering Sylvie's past, because she does tell her later in the episode, "Oh, I remember you." She goes into the room where the timekeepers are. We see their silhouettes. She seems really pensive, like she's afraid about what's going to happen when she talks to them. The podium that they're on seems very similar to the version of the comic book podium that they sit on. Like, they are trying to make them look at least like the comic book versions, even if the MCU versions are meant to be fake, like they're robots. In the comics, they're actually real. The timekeepers are actual, physical, organic beings. But here's the thing with the big reveal about them during the episode. At least at this moment, it's not really clear what Renslayer knows and what she doesn't know, because the way they play her during the episode, they want you to think that she's been complicit this whole time, like she's actually known the secret and she's been lying to everyone, getting rid of people right and left when they start to get close to uncovering the secret. But because of the twist of what happens with Loki in the post-credit scene revealed that he wasn't really killed by her, it kind of throws into question how evil she really might be. Like, is this all a misdirect and she's actually still a good character? It's just that for most of the episode, the way they play her, they want you to think that she's really bad, but that also feels like it could be another misdirect. So it's not totally clear whether or not she understands that the timekeepers themselves are robots and fake. I think this also gets into the idea that she kind of wanted Sylvie to kill her at the end of the episode. Right now, though, it just seems like she's afraid to face them, and they obviously don't tell you what it is that they told her. There's just a time jump to where she comes out and starts talking to Mobius, and he starts grilling her on what's going on. And obviously a lot of this was all misdirect, like she kept trying to avoid answering any of Mobius's questions directly, giving away any real information about the timekeepers, making it seem like she was hiding things on purpose. Then back on Lamentis 1, we check back in with Loki and Sylvie, who are kind of resigned to their fate in the apocalypse. Like, Sylvie actually genuinely feels like she's going to die. Like, I lived during apocalypses, and I'm gonna die during an apocalypse. All the special effects for this part of the episode are actually pretty fantastic, even though it goes by pretty quickly. Just the wide, long shot of the planets colliding. And while that's happening, they start playing a really sad-sounding version of the Loki theme song, sort of like a lamentation. They're on Lamentis 1. Sylvie explains that the universe wants to break free, manifesting chaos like her, being born the goddess of mischief instead of being born a man, even though it's still not clear what it is about her that created the Nexus event. But the whole idea of the universe wanting to break free is a big metaphor for the sacred timeline and whoever's controlling the timekeepers, the TVA in general, breaking free from this system. That is, Mobius has them turn up the dials on other detection equipment in the TVA to sort of find the needle in the Nexus haystack. Loki and Sylvie have this genuine moment, and I love how the idea of them just having this tender moment together is so abnormal for Loki's that it creates an atomic level Nexus event that they sort of continue to reference throughout the rest of the episode. Like the way Mobius talks about it later, they're in love, like they have some relationship that's slowly kind of building between the two of them, like they might be falling in love with each other. And that's such a weird thing that it's going to completely tear down the entire TVA. It's certainly a spicy one. I mean, it wouldn't be Loki if it weren't something really crazy like this. Sylvie references something during their conversation that Mobius said in episode 1 when he claimed Loki always seemed destined to lose, like, are you destined to lose? Loki says even though they do lose painfully sometimes, they don't die, they survive. That's a reference to all the times he faked his own death in the MCU, which he himself references later in the episode. But the statement is also meant to foreshadow the events of the post-credit scene where Loki wakes up to find the multiple other Loki variants telling him that he's got to come with them or he will die soon. Like, there are also a bunch of other Loki variants like Sylvie who escaped. Then because of that giant Nexus event that they caused, by sort of coming together, Mobius hauls them in. I love Loki complaining that they're demeaning him by not treating him like a greater threat because Sylvie has way more guards on her. But Mobius takes him to a time theater, throws him through a different red-colored portal that he calls a time cell. Like it's their version of throwing a prisoner in an isolation cell, which is basically like a time loop for something really terrible that happened to them. So it really is an effective form of torture. They said that the whole twist with Loki revealing the truth to him, the TVA has been lying to you as they haul him in. Setting up the big payoff at the end of the episode that Loki was right this whole time, Mobius even acknowledges it, even since the beginning of episode 1, when he first hauled him in, saying the timekeepers, the TVA, just a completely ridiculous, a complete farce, and turns out he was right. But the way they explain this, it is actually an event from the regular 616 Loki's past, before our Loki became a variant, so it's before the events of the previous Marvel movies at some point, like some point in his history when he was much younger. Jaime Alexander comes back as Sif, and I believe she's also supposed to come back during Thor Ragnarok, or at least it seemed like she was coming back the way she was posting on her Instagram. But basically, the situation here is that at some point in their history, Loki played a trick on her and cut her hair, and she just got really pissed off at him, so she knees him in the balls, but because it's a time loop, she knees him in the balls continuously over and over again. The whole thing with her telling him, you're always going to be alone, you're going to die alone, it just meant to set up the twist at the end of the episode when it kind of seemed like he was almost ready to kiss Sylvie. He also kind of admits later when he's in the loop trying to break the loop to Sif saying, okay, I do this because I'm a narcissist, I'm afraid of being alone, I crave attention. Mobius asks him later, do you really want to die alone? Telling him you can be anybody you want to be, you can even be a good person, which is another reference to the 616 Loki fully redeeming himself, like you can eventually become a hero character. So this is them highlighting his redemption arc on the series here. Then the way they play all these Mobius Renslayer scenes early on, I think the reason why she doesn't want him interrogating her is because she knows about Sylvie's enchantment powers and doesn't want him to learn about all the variants, the secret that everyone at the TVA is a variant. So I think by this point of the episode, it's pretty clear that she does know about that secret. They also set up Hunter B-15's storyline helping Sylvie out because, as she explains later, when Sylvie enchanted her, she also saw a memory from wherever it was she came from. We didn't see what the memory was, but she saw one, bringing her around fully to Team Loki or Team Sylvie, however you want to think about it. But the cool Easter egg here too is that when she's talking to Mobius, he says they process variants of Kree Titans, who are people from Thanos' home planet, the people of Titan, who themselves are Eternals, who we're going to see during the Eternals movie later this year. It's just that people from Titan are a different branch of Eternals, but he also says that they've hauled in vampires, which is huge because it's meant to foreshadow and sort of tease the Blade movie with Mahershala Ali. So vampires are now canon in the MCU if you didn't think they were before. It's just that as far as we know, we haven't seen any vampires on screen. It'll be funny to see how they sort of work that in the background, like we've been amongst you this whole time, you just didn't realize till now. Like the way they explained that the Eternals characters have been on planet Earth for thousands of years, but we didn't know about them till present day. He also references Loki and Sylvie as demigods, providing some more context for the Asgardian gods like Thor, Odin, Hela, who also gets a bit of a name drop at the end of the episode when Loki's like, am I in hell? The Hel version of hell, the Asgardian hell. Sort of where they fit in the cosmic pantheon of gods of the MCU. Not capital G gods, lowercase g gods, kind of like Ego the Living Planet called himself a god with a little g. That'll be really important for the Gore the God Butcher storyline in Thor Love and Thunder, but Gore will be going around killing all the gods of the Marvel Universe during that movie. The way they paced out the episode though, Hunter B-15 and Mobius both kind of figure out the secret or come to the realization of all the variants inside the TVA about the same time. Mobius seems like he's a little more skeptical at first though. Hunter B-15 seems like she's dead set, like she immediately goes to talk to Sylvie like, you come with me, we're gonna go to that apocalypse event so you can reveal what's going on and show me that memory again. They sort of tease out more of the Loki-Sylvie arc when Mobius lies to him saying that Sylvie was erased, and it almost seems like Loki's heart bursts inside his chest. Like he almost has a similar reaction to when he learned about what happened with his mother. His whole lie about Sylvie that he tried to give Mobius was also kind of funny too. Oh, she came to me a long time ago on Asgard, and I've been pulling the strings this whole time. Although he does talk about them hatching a plan a long time ago, even though it's a lie, he talks about it coming to fruition, something really big happening really soon. That is also meant to foreshadow the big WTF ending of the episode, even though in this moment he's actually lying about something else. It's kind of fun to watch him and Mobius try to out-lie each other like they're playing four-dimensional chess with the lies, trying to get each other to reveal the truth. But eventually Mobius does goad Loki into snapping and telling him the truth. You're all variants. The Timekeepers have been lying to you. They didn't create you, they stole you from where you came from. You were kidnapped. Owen Wilson also has a really great performance during this scene too, because you can tell that he's kind of shook by what Loki tells him. He kind of believes it, but he doesn't completely give it away. Like he's kind of thinking about this lost 90s jet ski past that he might have buried deep inside him, which he then does reference later in the episode. You know where I go if I could go anywhere? I would go back to where you took me from. Maybe I even had a jet ski then. Then while this is going on, you see that scene play out between Sylvie and Hunter B-15. The whole idea with it raining here on them is that it's sort of a metaphor for it washing away the lies of the TVA as she comes back into her memories. Sylvie sort of unlocks them again for her. The funny connection here is because Jonathan Majors, who's playing Kang the Conqueror in the MCU, was in Lovecraft Country, but Wumi Musaku was also in Lovecraft Country as a different character. So just a funny coincidental connection between her, B-15, and Kang the Conqueror in a completely different project. So post all the jokes about this actually being the events of her life before the TVA took her. Mobius has another big conversation with Ravonna Renslayer, and I think at this point she's such a bad liar. It's so obvious the lies that she's telling him that Mobius is just kind of nodding his head, just thinking, oh my god, this is all bullcrap. As she sort of hangs Sylvie's sword on her trophy case, he swipes her time pad with the footage of C20. Later as he's watching it, he sees the footage of her debrief where she's basically explaining what she meant when she said, it's real, as he was asking earlier in the episode, what was she talking about? She was just referencing the events of her memories, like, it was real, I really did live on Earth, and it actually lists her birth date on the time pad here. She was born in 1979. The date here, March 15th, 2050, is supposed to be the day that episode 3 took place, the events of her death. Although because of what happened with Loki being sent to this other post-apocalyptic world, you do kind of wonder, when people get melted, are they really getting melted or are they just getting sent somewhere else? But he does see that Renslayer is the person who stopped the debrief before C20 could continue explaining what Sylvie showed her about the truth of them all being variants. Like I said, it was pretty clear earlier in the episode that Renslayer knew about the secret of all the TVA agents and the people that work there being variants. Mobius finally goes full Team Loki, then brings him back, but finds that Renslayer is waiting for him with a team of hunters. They pay off that jet ski reference as she seemingly has him erased. Like I said, still big question about what's really happening here if Loki survived the events of this. But the whole thing with Mobius is I feel like they kill him off so quickly and so nonchalantly that we will see him again. As Loki said earlier in the episode during their conversation, he told him, you're on a loop just like everyone else. And his name Mobius is a scientific reference to this idea of a single-sided surface that just loops around on itself. Like the name Mobius implies time loop, as in we'll see Mobius again sometime before the end of the series. Because it's a time travel series, there are so many ways that you can bring that character back. So this is probably not the last time we'll see this character. Also, I think the Loki twist in the post-credit scene sort of helps support that idea. Like, if we're seeing Loki again after he got disintegrated, then clearly we're probably also going to see Mobius again at some point too. But then Renslayer takes them up in the elevator to see the Timekeepers, arguably to have them killed, erased in front of the Timekeepers. In the way they play this scene between Renslayer and Sylvie, like, tell me, what was the Nexus event? Why was the reason that you erased my timeline? What was so terrible that I did? When she says, I don't remember, and has that evil smile on her face, they want to make it feel like she has zero compassion for her, like she doesn't care about her at all. Like it's another version of the Thanos meme, you took everything from me. But in actuality, she did just say that I do remember you. She's just saying that she didn't remember what the Nexus event was. That could also be a lie as well. The architecture where the Timekeepers are, this special room where their robots exist, seems kind of like this crazy M.C. Escher painting. But then as they're about to be erased, Hunter B-15 rushes in to save them, takes their collars off, and reveals that she even went back to Renslayer's office to steal Sylvie's sword back for her. They knock her out during the fight, so she's still alive. She'll be back during episode 5, but for the rest of the episode, she's out for the count. The middle Timekeeper goes full Doctor Strange, Sylvie, we've come to bargain, as she then cuts its head off, promptly revealing the lie that they're robots. And the even stranger thing about this too is that the other two Timekeeper robots start laughing uncontrollably, like whoever's behind this is laughing uncontrollably. Just in general, I'm getting this really strong Miss Minutes vibe here too. Like, obviously there's a lot of theories that there's another version of Loki that's controlling all this. Like, post all your Agatha Harkness memes, it was Loki all along. But if you think about the idea that Miss Minutes is a digital AI and they were sort of joking about how she had a physical form, like she could jump around and walk around in three-dimensional space, she wasn't bound to the screens. As a character, she seems so saccharine, so overly sweet, that it seems like it's hiding something sinister behind her. So still just a couple theories out there about who's really behind this. I know people are also wondering if Kang the Conqueror is connected to this because Ravonna Renslayer is so connected to him in the comics. Early guesses that by the end of episode 5, we'll have enough clues and evidence to really narrow down the list of suspects for who the actual main villain of the series is. So everybody let me know in the comments who you think is actually behind the robot Timekeepers, like who is actually behind all this. But just as it seems as Loki is about to kiss Sylvie and explain their epic level Nexus event that Mobius was talking about earlier that could bring down the TVA, Renslayer seemingly erases him with her wand. And I don't think they planned it this way, but it looks a lot like the scene that Vision went out on, Hex Vision went out on at the end of the Wandavision finale, where he's basically saying goodbye my love, but we will meet again someday. They play it like it's a huge WTF twist, like, wait a minute, did they just kill Loki? Isn't he supposed to be the main character of the show? Did they go full Ned Stark Game of Thrones on us? But clearly that's not true because in the post-credit scene we see that he wakes up on that apocalyptic version of Earth. Sylvie doesn't know this though, but then demands that Renslayer tell her the whole truth. So it does sound like we'll find out all of Renslayer's backstory, how she's connected to all this during episode 5 next week. So you won't have to wait that long to get all these answers. The new song that plays over the credits is If You Love Me by Patti LaBelle, and I think the song is mostly meant to be a metaphor for Loki and Sylvie's relationship. Then in the actual post-credit scene, Loki wakes up on the apocalypse version of Earth, but he asks if it's hell, like the Asgardian hell, am I dead? That's the place where Odin trapped Hela in the MCU in that prison for thousands of years. And in the comics, it's the place where she rules over. It's one of the realms where Asgardians go after they die, if they don't go to Valhalla. Like in Norse mythology, it's kind of like their version of the Christian hell, an afterlife of sorts. Odin, for instance, right now, who just died during Thor Ragnarok, ascended to Valhalla, which is kind of like another dimension, another state of existence. Hell is kind of the same for Asgardians. You could travel there as a person, like even if you're alive, you could still travel there and then come back from death, so to speak, like you would come back from another dimension. But then we hear Richard E. Grant's voice, who's unmistakable. Even if you didn't know who he was playing, you probably recognize his voice instantly, answering Loki, saying that, no, you're not dead, but you will be dead soon if you don't come with us, and reveals that he's playing classic Loki like we all thought that he was last year. He's wearing the OG Loki comic book costume, which kind of looks like the cosplay version of Loki from his first appearance in Journey into Mystery number 85, Jack Kirby Thor and Loki stories. There's a version of Kid Loki played by Jack Veal, which we also heard about last year. That was rumored for a long time. His costume is comic book accurate. He originally debuted in Thor 617. There's another version of Loki wielding a version of Mjolnir. That's what this hammer's supposed to be, I believe. The credits only list him as the boastful or the prideful version of Loki. He's played by Diobia Opare. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. But then this is so awesome. There is a crocodile version of Loki. Crocodile Loki or alligator Loki, however you want to think about him, with a little Loki crown of horns on his head. I couldn't find any specific comic book references to alligator Loki, but I think this is meant to be like their version of the Spider-Pig twist from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like, give me Spider-Pig, but make it Loki. If you look in the background, you can clearly see the ruins of the Avengers Tower and what seems like the New York City skyline, but this is just this post-apocalyptic place. It seems like it's planet Earth, but they're not really clear about that yet. This also might be where all the President Loki scenes happen, because there's this distinct post-apocalyptic vibe around his little throne room and his minions here in the trailers. So it just seems like there are a lot of Loki variant refugees living out in this place. But if you spotted any big Easter eggs during the episode that I didn't talk about during the video, just write them below in the comments. I feel like I'm gonna have to watch the episode a couple more times to catch everything. Probably my favorite episode so far. I feel like this episode blows all the other episodes out of the water. I've got a couple bonus videos planned. Obviously, I'll talk more about that post-credit scene, the Timekeepers reveal, and I'll do a Loki episode 4 trailer video. So make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss any of those. Everyone click here for all my other Loki episode videos, and click here for my non-spoilery Black Widow movie review. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.